For this month's Riff of the Month, I take on one of rock's most iconic guitar parts of all time. It's the outro solo to Queen's We Will Rock You. Now on its face, this part doesn't seem all that difficult. It's not full of all this show-offy shredder kind of stuff that you think is going to take you a long time to play. But let me tell you, the level of subtlety and nuance on this thing, to get it exactly right, I'm going to do my best. So the song is standard tuned. He's got his cool Vox AC30 sound with his guitar. I've made a copy of the sound for those of you who have Axe Effects on the Axe Effects 3, and I'm including it on the Axe Change. I'll include the link in the description. And I'm going to run the tab along the bottom here while I do this, as well as I will post a link to the full tab in the description as well. So right away with this, we get into some of these subtle nuances that are difficult to play. The very first part is easy. It's just the A chord with the G note and the E string. Very typical old classic rock blues thing. But then what happens with the click sounds he's making in between is pretty subtle and a little bit difficult to play. And it's just that you play the first two clicks in the middle strings, and as you're doing it, you move up a little bit, changing the harmonic value of the notes underneath. Then you have a downstroke on the low string. You're back up for the A chord. Click on the upstroke to the middle strings again before coming back to the A chord. So the timing of that can be a little bit difficult to get. I've had to do numerous takes of it to get it right as I was practicing it myself. Anyway, after the clicks, it's just back to the... And then he hits the A note on the upbeat of the end of the first measure to give himself time to get into position for the second measure. Now on the second measure, start some of the subtle staccato, fingers lifting off type of mute things. You've got the A note ringing, then on the downbeat, you hit the octave of the A chord. And then you're going to move to this minor 7 type form here. It would be like a B minor 7 normally, but you're keeping the A in the bass. So you've got the 16th fret, 14th fret, and 15th fret on the strings there. So he kind of hits the notes, lifts his fingers off, but lets the A continue to ring out. That's what gives it that chimey quality, that the parts of the chord are still ringing even though you're muting other parts of the chord. Anyway, in that second measure, briefly he hits just those two notes to accentuate them, a couple quick clicks, and then we're on to the third measure. The third measure now repeats basically what the first measure was doing, but with a little more subtlety. Now when he does the hammer on, he's just lifting those two notes that he hammered on off and allowing both the A string and the octave A to ring out while the staccato part is happening. And at the end of this measure begins the pull-off part. He has this note ringing through for a moment, and then he starts the pull-off at the end of this measure, which will do the whole pull-off sequence as its own thing here. We begin this pull-off / cross-picking thing at the end of the third measure. We've had this barred, this note here is ringing out, and we start the pull-off on the high E string, and we're going to keep bouncing back to the E note on the D string. That's the whole sequence in a chunk that I like to look at it there. So you pull off from the 17th fret to the 15th fret, bounce down to the E note, up to the F sharp on the E string, back again to the low E, up here to the E octave, down again, and then the pull off. Well, it's going to start the pull off. It's a chord now. You have the sus4 there. Pull off, bounce again, and then go back to the chord and hold it, let the chorus kind of chime out, and we'll go into the next chunk. Now in the next chunk, you're pulling off from here after it rang. So you pull off from the 15th to the 14th with the whole chord ringing out, and then the 16th to the 14th on the G string. Now we're into the 5th measure. We're continuing to hold the bar. We've got the 14th and the 14th here. So an A and an E, keeping that chord. And then you play the E note. And there's another subtlety here where you play the note while it rings and then mute it and then come back to it again. I exaggerated it there, but that's basically what happens. He plays it, lifts it off, and then plays it again. After the second time he plays it, he pulls off to the 14th fret and goes back to that note there, finishing the kind of cross-picking part and getting ready for the next logical section. Now we're in the middle of the fifth measure and we're playing kind of a standard pentatonic thing. Something that you've probably used before. It's just a bend up and then the unison note here. So you got the E, the 17th fret, the F sharp, then the F sharp here. Pick it on the way down. Pick the 14th fret there. Pick the 16th fret as you bend. Let it down. And then pick the 14th fret of the root note there. Actually, on the way down, so he's got that 16th fret. When he comes down from the bend, he picks it again, and then the A. And then he quickly hits the dyad to keep that chimey thing happening, the two notes, the double stop, whatever you want to call it, the 2 14th fret. And then from there we get into the home stretch, the last three measures of this, which are, so add some more subtlety layers again, but have similarity because they're repeated. He then does two of those sus4 pull-offs, back to the root and the chord. Then he just stops, and now the next two measures are a repeat of each other, and the subtlety is in how he pulls off to keep that chimey quality. He hits the whole chord, and it sounds to me in the recording like he doesn't pick that. The first one is just his finger, and then he picks from the A note, the chord, that dyad there, which is the 16th and the 14th. Then he does this thing where you can hear him slide across the strings. You hear the finger noise. You can see there I picked that first pull off. It's really hard to get myself not to do that. It's such a different feel than what I'm used to. So there it is in little chunks. As you can see, the chunks don't fall at the beginning and the end of every measure, making logical sense of it. And part of why the nuances are so unique is that the thought processes or the pieces that he's putting together kind of happen in middles and towards the end of measures. And so the logic of it can be a little difficult to get under your fingers, or at least for me with the styling that I've grown up with and the way I've learned to play. So this was a challenge for me to try to get right and get the nuances right. Anyway, I hope my explanation of it and the tabs help you out if you've been looking to learn it yourself and you really wanted to get kind of nitty gritty here. The main thing to take away is a lot of the subtlety with the hammer-ons and the keeping certain notes ringing so that you get that chimey quality that makes it so cool. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.